Also, this weekend we have the return of the hurlers. We haven't seen them in action since the 17th of July last year. It's a long, long time since we saw the players in action. They had a well-deserved holiday over the last 10 days or so. I think most of them are home now. I presume a couple of them stayed on and went to a lot of different places. Did you see any pictures of the cruise? Were you jealous? Did you see anything?
Actually, no. I'm jealous. No, Jack. Um, Absolutely delighted for him, and um, anything, Jack. As I've said before in this cast, um, anything that comes the way of those lads it isn't enough for me. I don't think they can be rewarded enough for what they have achieved. Absolutely, I'm absolutely delighted for anything that comes their way.
Yeah. Oh no, it's totally deserved. I hope they had an enjoyable time. I saw a video of Kyle Hayes playing basketball, so hopefully we won't lose him to that sport because he certainly has all the attributes to play a game. To be honest, Kyle could kind of play anything. I think it's fair enough to say, but they're on home soil again. They'll be looking forward to the start of the year. They always have a target in their back as All Ireland champions. They're playing Cork in Páirc Uí Rinn, which is interesting because that's where the league will start. Well, it'll start in Páirc Uí Chaoimh on the 4th of February. It's less than a month away, but there will be a bit of bite to that game because Pat Ryan's in charge of Cork now. Cork always see themselves as contenders, and they got to the final in 2021. They were well beaten by Limerick, and a scar like that doesn't go away so easily, Matt, to be fair. And Limerick beat them fairly handily last year in Páirc Uí Chaoimh as well. For Limerick, before we get into the game itself, is there anyone you see coming into the panel or anything you've heard that new faces that you'd be interested to see?
I wouldn't even attempt to second guess what what team he will field. Now, other than to think that apart from Barry Nash, it was basically a team of fringe players last year that he put out in this competition and won it.
Yeah.
So whether he's going to go down the same road or not this year, we'll only just we'll wait with bated breath until the team is announced later in the week.
But anyone you would like to see, we'll say, of those fringe players, we've mentioned Shane O'Brien. He seems to be in with the squad. I know Jimmy Quilty and Fergal O'Connor were called in last year after the 20 season finished. Lads like that, you'll be hoping.
No, I certainly would like to see lads like that given a run. The like of, as you said, Jimmy Quilty there and Fergal O'Connor, who had a great year with the under-20s last year. And actually, you were the first to pick it up, Jack. How strong he had been, how effective he was on the Limerick team. I'd like to see Fergal getting a run. And of course, I'd like to see Colin Coughlin getting an extended run, maybe Adam English, and definitely Shane O'Brien. I would like to see Shane O'Brien tested at this level because I'd be very, very confident that he would match up to it, Jack. I'd be very, very confident of that. But I see a lot of those players, more game time, of course, for Cathal O'Neill. Players like that, and I suspect that he may go for a mixture of the tried and tested and some new players. I was just looking at Pat Ryan's selection against Kerry. Now there were a number of players who he's going to be without Mark Coleman for the year, and he's a huge loss to Cork. But Jack, a player of the caliber of Mark Coleman is a loss to the game, just as much as he is to Cork, because they're players like him are the players that we really like to see. Darragh Fitzgibbon missed, Timmy Mahoney missed, a few players like that. But he tried out a lot of the players that were successful with his under 20 side. Plus a mixture of the Conor Lahans, the Sean O'Donoghue, who's the Cork captain this year, and Shane Kingston, and the like of those. So he went for a mix. And we'll probably do the same. And I suspect John Kiley will do the same, John. But we're really poking in the dark in the absence of knowing what the likely teams are, what the likely... the lineouts will give us a clear indication of what the approach to the competition is. particularly from a Limerick point of view. Like they are the holders, and they won it last year with fringe players. I presume you will see the like of David Reedy and all these involved.
Yeah, Micheál Houlihan is one for me. He was brilliant for Kilmallock 2 years ago. It was blighted with injury last year. He'll be looking to make his mark. Even Richie English,
yes. Oisin O'Reilly.
Yeah, because Mike Casey is injured, and we don't know the time frame. But I don't know, will he be back in time for the league? So there is position there at fullback. Fergal has obviously played fullback for the 20s, but Richie English will see that as the next man in line, as he should.
Obviously it is a position that John Kiley would be approaching, and maybe mightn't be entirely surprised if Dan Morrissey was fullback for the Munster League.
Yeah, and also we'll have a certain Keane Lynch to come back at some stage. Because Limerick are winning, you'd forget that there is a player like that in reserve that we haven't seen really since 2021. So there's an abundance of riches there for John Kiley.
What about Peter the Great, Casey?
Yeah, so there's a lot of players. He's moved Kyle around. If Dan Morrissey goes to 3, Kyle will probably go back 7, but that's probably more of a championship thing. We want to kind of see the fringe players, the players that are training the whole time. I think Brian O'Grady is close enough to getting back. I don't think he'll be back in time for Munster Hurling League, but you'll also have a lot of these players playing Fitzgibbon Cup. 3 you mentioned, Adam English, Colin O'Neill, and Colin Coughlin will all be with UL, and we will look forward to the Fitzgibbon Cup next week because we'll be recording before UL and Mary I and Toos get their campaigns underway. But I suppose this weekend it is Cork in Park Urin on Sunday, and I suppose all games are being streamed by Munster JTV, so if you can't make them, you can watch online. But you mentioned Cork there, and you obviously have a lot of connections in Cork. I suppose for the Limerick faithful, what does Pat Ryan bring to the team? Because obviously he was involved in those under-20 teams that won All Irelands, and there'll be a lot of hope with those players that they can make their way through and make their mark.
Yeah, they will be looking for him to replicate what John Kiley did initially, bringing under 21 success and translating it into senior success. Whether he can do it or not is a big question, because they have a good way to go now. But John Kiley did it in 3 years, Jack, and like Pat Ryan's 2 teams were in 2019 and 20. They were 2020 and 2021. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So, there should be another year in the development and in the assembly of the team. Certainly, he has this quality of being able to get the best out of guys and being able to gel good teams together. Now, he did it 2 years in a row at under 20 level. Whether he can replicate it at senior, and that is the challenge, and it is a challenge for Pat Ryan. And I see that in the line out against Kerry that he relied on a number of the players that stood him in good stead in those under 20 campaigns. But I'm sure that the loss of Mark Coleman is going to be a huge loss, because he would be one of the he would have been one of the pillars that he would have been hoping to build around. But certainly there are a lot of good young players coming through in Cork, but whether they have the same physicality of those in Limerick and is a big question, because the game has gone very, very physical, as we know now, Jack. And physicality is a huge thing, and it's Limerick's power and physicality that the counties are trying to match as much as the hurling. So I think in that regard, Cork are still a bit behind.
I think everyone is a bit behind in that regard, and that's okay on our part. We just want to see Limerick winning, and obviously then on Tuesday it'll be Kerry in the second round, the final round of the group stages at 7:00. That game is changed to Austin Stack Park in Tralee on Tuesday. Look, we can't really look forward to the game that much because we haven't seen Limerick play yet. We have seen Kerry. They were beaten 230 to 217 by Cork. But, we were saying for the footballers that they want as much games as they can get this time of year. For the hurlers, is it as important reaching the final, or does it depend on what kind of players are used? Because, your stalwart players, your Nicky Quaid, Sean Finns, Declan Hannons, Will Donahus, those players are used to playing All-Ireland finals. They don't need more game time. But if it is the fringe team that won the Munster Hurling League last year, is it important for John Kiley to know that he can trust those players in big-time scenarios if they're needed, later on in the year in Munster Championships or All-Ireland series?
It is very, very important. Very, very important. But the fall of the dice this time is Limerick beaten in Cork. The Kerry game becomes a dead rubber.
True.
But it were Limerick to win. It becomes I won't say it's a must win to get to the Munster Senior League final. So look, Jack, we've got to wait to see what happens on Sunday.
Yeah,
it's a quick turnaround, and I'm sure if what the worst to happen to Limerick on Sunday, I'd say you'd see a very, very experimental team going to Tralee on Tuesday night.
Yeah, look, you obviously want Limerick to win and you want the game to have stakes, but there's no harm in these players playing games because Kerry won't be a pushover, but they won't be, probably at the level that Limerick are going to meet later on down the line. But look, it remains to be seen. This Cork game is very important in that regard because, as you said, if they lose to Cork, it's a dead rubber. Cork will have won both their games. They'll be into Munster Hurling League final, which I think is very important for them, like it is for the Limerick footballers, just to get to the final. And
absolutely, it's very, very important because Pat Ryan, you spoke about him there a while ago, and Cork, they will want to let an imprint on the league this year, Jack.
Yeah,
they got to the final last year, were probably favourites going into it, came up very short against Waterford. It's imperative at this stage, Jack, that Cork get their hands on silverware. They haven't won an All-Ireland in 18 years, which in Cork is a lifetime.
Yeah,
they haven't won the league in what, 25 years this year?
Yeah, it was definitely the 90s anyway. So
1998, Dermot O'Sullivan captained them to win the league.
Yeah, no, it is vital to get silverware, and even though it's only the Munster Hurling League, Limerick won it in 1821 and 22.
They won it in 2015, Jack.
Yeah, but in terms of going on to more success, 2020 and 2022 saw him winning All Irelands after winning the Munster Hurling League. Now, whether there's a correlation there or it's coincidence remains to be seen, but Cork won't shy away from any silverware because it's badly overdue in a county like that. But yeah, look, the best of luck to the Limerick hurlers on Sunday and the footballers on Saturday and the hurlers again then on Tuesday. Those three games we played before we record. Next